Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times to discuss movies and horror, and today I'm here to talk to you about everything that I watched in the month of September.
It's coffee time!
So August is a month that I did not watch too much, and I was also on holidays, so I didn't do a wrap up for that month. So we're just gonna focus on what I watched in the month of September. I'm gonna go through everything that I watched as always through my Letterboxd account. If you want to follow me there, the link is in the description box down below, so you can check the movies that I have been watching and which ratings I've been giving them. And yeah, let's get into it. So the month of September has been a combination between new movies and a couple of rewatches for franchises that are coming up with new movies. The first movie is called Don't Look Away, and I didn't have any expectations at all for this film because it is one of those low-budget indie films, but sometimes they can surprise you and they can be a lot of fun, and this one involved a mannequin. I love movies about dolls, puppets, mannequins, anything like that, so I really wanted to check this one out. So our main character Frankie has seen this mannequin, and ever since she saw it for the first time, it has been kind of coming back to pick on her friends and kill them one by one, and she knows that eventually it's gonna come for her. So it's a very straightforward kind of like evil or possessed mannequin story, if you may, and it did have some good moments, some funny moments, but in general it was all things that I've seen before. The horror didn't quite work for me, but I've heard other people saying that they really enjoyed it. So, you know, if you're interested in it, you might want to check it out. I think the director has good ideas and a good vision. So I am excited to see if they're gonna move forward with more horror movies. I would definitely check them out. Then we have Perpetrator, and I was excited to watch this movie. I thought it was gonna be, I guess, different than what it was. I was kind of hoping for a more surprising movie, a more original movie, and I felt like this was just not it. Alicia Silverstone is in it, and I was also excited to see her. I think, you know, she might not be the best actress out there, but there's something kind of nostalgic about her that I like. So this is about a girl who is being sent to live with her estranged aunt, and then she is being told about something that happens in her family, that happens to women in her family. It's something that happens on your 18th birthday, and it's called the Forevering. Then you also have a combination of something happening to girls in the town, and you can put two and two together and know what's gonna happen next. This was a movie that was supposed to kind of dive into female oppression and all of that, and it kind of wanted to be a giallo film at times. I think the movie really wanted to be original, but then it failed at that, and I don't know, it just didn't work for me. Then we have All Fun and Games, which I thought it was fine. I loved the background. We follow some teenagers that find a knife that is connected to Salem, and it has a story. And this knife has kind of like evil magic powers and forces them to play games that end up being deadly. The jump scares were basically very repetitive, like it was the same formula all the time. I thought the games could have been a little bit more original, and I also felt like the movie was a little bit repetitive when it comes to tell the story of the knife. They were explaining us the same thing over and over again, so it had its flaws, but I thought it was a fun time. Then we have The Nun 2, which I enjoyed, but as I've said many times before, it's because I really like Valak. This time, the movie takes place 4 years after the original Nun movie, and what I liked about this one is that we dive a little bit deeper into the characters that we already met in part 1, and we get to know them a little bit better, and it has a lot more character depth. When it comes to the horror, there were things that were expected. My biggest pet peeve with the film is that they were showing Valak too much too early, and it kind of, you know, removed that tension of only seeing shadows and being more kind of expectant to see her. But then things went a little bit bonkers towards the end, and I was on board for that. So I had a good time. Then I watched Strays, which, fun fact, here in the Netherlands, it's called Doggy Style. And I went to see this because my partner wanted to see it because he really likes Jamie Foxx, and I was like, okay, let's go watch it. And honestly, it's about a dog that has a very toxic relationship with his owner. His owner basically treats him like shit, and he keeps going back to his owner anyways. And he ends up, you know, being a stray, meeting other dogs and kind of talking to each other. He realizes that this owner he thought loved him is actually an asshole. And you know, it had a couple of good jokes, but for the majority, it was not as funny as I expected. Then I watched Play Dead, which I was pleasantly surprised. This is also a low-budget movie. And there's something about movies that take place in a morgue that I enjoy. I don't know why, because I find morgues quite terrifying. It's not exactly a place I would like to find myself locked in. We follow here a criminology student called Chloe, and something happens with her brother, and there is some sort of evidence that she needs to retrieve from the morgue in order to, you know, kind of save her brother. So she decides to sneak into the morgue and ends up facing a lot of danger, and the whole movie is basically just in the morgue. This is a movie that, you know, you gotta be in disbelief in order to watch this film. That is fair. I mean, it's predictable. It's a movie that it doesn't bring anything really fresh, but I thought it was quite engaging. I was having fun with it. I enjoy the premise. I enjoy the idea. So all in all, I thought this was very solid. And if you have not watched it, I do recommend you guys to give it a watch. Then I watched My Animal. This is kind of like a romantic queer werewolf movie, and I ended up enjoying it more than I expected. Now, when it comes to the story, it's very straightforward and again, not extremely original, but I thought that the acting was absolutely fantastic, and the visuals, the cinematography is something that I also really enjoyed. It follows Heather, who is an outcast in a very small town, and her family has a secret, which is basically that they can turn into werewolves. You kind of already know this or suspect this from the very beginning, and you know what that means for her, her struggles with that, and how she finds love, all of that. It's very intimate, emotional. It's not so much about the horror, but there is horror in the film. But I do recommend it, guys, if you haven't checked it out. Then I went to see A Hunting in Venice, and I gotta admit, the other two movies based on Poirot from Agatha Christie, I found them quite boring. And I almost didn't go and watch this one, but I thought, okay, this one is about ghosts. There is a seance, so maybe something more down my alley, even though I love murder mysteries. And I enjoyed it. I thought it had good scary moments. It had definitely creepy moments, especially for people that are more used to just regular thrillers. For people like me that is so exposed to horror daily, the horror didn't have such a big impact, but I thought it was really well done. I did enjoy a lot of the conversations that the characters were having and the investigation. You always know with this type of movies there is a murder and nobody's allowed to leave the premises until the murder is solved by Poirot. So that's basically the gist of all these movies. The thing is only that with these movies I always find myself at some point a little bit bored, like a little bit like the movie's dragging for me, but that might be just me. But the visuals and everything was really great in this movie. I think it's been my favorite of the three, nevertheless. Then I watched Elevator Game, which is based on an online game phenomenon of the same name. And that game is based on a true story, true crime story that happened. So the game basically tells you that if you go to certain floors in a specific order, you're gonna end up seeing the woman on the 5th floor. And if you see her, then basically you're screwed. This movie was interesting because it followed YouTubers that are trying to put up like videos based on scary games, scary stories, and kind of debunk myths and stuff like that. And they get to play the elevator game, and obviously they realize that it's actually real, that people are actually disappearing, being killed. I thought they had a good concept, but the movie felt very repetitive. It was just an elevator going up and down all the time with different characters, and it fails to catch the attention of the viewer, in my opinion. There were some good gory moments, I will give it that. And I did like the whole background of the story of the elevator and the woman in the 5th floor and all of that. But again, the horror wasn't as exciting, I guess, as I expected. But I did like also to see the woman in the fifth floor. When they did show her, it was also one of my highlights. Next, I watched Natty Knox, which I knew this movie was a B movie. It has Robert Englund in it. And anything that has Robert Englund in it, I kind of still want to watch it just to see him because I love him so much. And this is a movie based also on Halloween night, so I thought it would be great to start getting into the season spirit. It is about a babysitter that is being threatened by this legend of Natty Knox, who is a woman that was killed in this town years before, and it has kind of like an 70s vibe to it. It is not like the worst movie I've ever seen or anything, but it's all very cliche. It's all been done 1,000 times before, so it didn't offer really anything new. Then I watched The Dive, which I was a little bit hesitant to watch this movie because it is a remake of a movie that just came out in 2020 called Breaking Surface, which is a Swedish movie that was amazing. I watched it at the Fantasy Film Festival in 2020, and I was kind of surprised that they were making a remake, and the remake was coming out in 2023. Like, that's just 3 years difference. Do we really have to make a remake? And it's also a German movie, but it's in English, and I was like, I am confused.com. Like, I don't know why you would do this, but anyway, I watched it. It was not a bad movie, but I would still suggest that you guys check the original. It's about two sisters that are kind of rekindling their relationship, and they decide to go diving because it's something that used to bond them in the past, and one of them gets trapped in the bottom of the ocean and the other one has to try to figure out how to get her out alive with barely any resources and nowhere to call for help. So it is quite terrifying, especially if you're afraid of dying by drowning. And I thought the original, again, was excellent. The remake is good, is solid, but I still prefer the original. Then I started my rewatch of the Saw movies, so not much that I can tell you here. You guys know what these movies are about. You have Jigsaw, and he wants to kind of make people realize the value of their own lives, and he wants to only let people live that have learned their lesson. So he gives them choices. He puts them in traps, he gives them choices, and most of them are not quite kind of fair choices. But it's a choice nevertheless. So everybody's familiar with the Saw franchise. Anyway, I rewatched the first one. I rewatched the short in which the franchise was based upon. If you don't know, there's a short that was made before the first movie came out, and that's how basically they pitched the movie and the idea to studios and stuff. You can find it on YouTube. You can give it a watch. Then I watched Retribution in the cinema, which is another one that I went to the cinema only because my partner wanted to see it. He likes to watch all Liam Neeson's movies. We are both aware that they are the same movie over and over again. Somebody puts his family in danger, himself in danger, and he's just gonna get revenge. I mean, this movie is basically the same thing. This guy is in his car with his two kids driving to school, and somebody calls him on a phone he didn't even know he had in the car and tells him that there is bombs attached to their seats so nobody can leave the car. That's the pitch. And then he's just gonna go and try to find whoever is trying to screw him over. And then I watched It Lives Inside and really enjoyed it. This is kind of like your typical classic American ghost story, but in Hindu, with a lot of mythology and a lot of Indian culture integrated in it, which is what I love the most about the film. You also get to see the struggles of being an immigrant in America and how you embrace it, or how you struggle between, you know, embracing your culture and not caring about what other people think, and trying to fit in as a teenager in an American school and trying to be one of the popular girls, and how if you want to become that, you kind of have to renounce to your background. And that is until, of course, an evil threatens her and her family, and then that evil is connected to her background, to her story. And it's a really interesting kind of coming of age story in a way, even though she's already old enough, but it kind of gave me that vibe. I thought it was really interesting. I would definitely recommend you guys to give it a watch. If you want to see all my thoughts on the film, I do have a spoiler-free review of this one. Some of the movies I'm mentioning, I do have spoiler-free review videos on my channel. Then we watched Saw 2. Just for purpose, you know, I'm getting ready for number 10. Then I watched The Seeding. This is a movie that I was really excited about. I know not many people know about it, and it's about this guy that gets lost in the wilderness. He's a photographer. He gets lost and he finds this woman that lives alone in a little house, and there's also these children that are really creepy, and the children are supposed to be dangerous, and I was like, I'm gonna enjoy this movie. Sounds fantastic, like isolated location, guy gets lost, meets these weirdos, what's gonna happen? And it was visually really good. I thought it had a great idea, a great concept, but for me, the movie dragged and not too much happened for a long period of time, and I found the movie a little bit underwhelming. But as I said, I really enjoyed the concept, so you can give it a watch. Then I saw Restore Point, which is a movie that I was also excited to watch because it brought a very interesting conversation to the table, which is what if we could do backups of our own selves. So we live now in 2041, and basically because there is so much violence in the world, we have developed a system in which you can back yourself up. So your memories, everything that you know, all the skills, everything related to you and your personality, you can back it up in a kind of like a database or in a company. And if somebody kills you, then they can bring you back. They can restore you. So for people that are being murdered and killed or caught in the middle of the fire for no reason, you know, to avoid all of those deaths, they basically, when you die, they bring you to the company, they put the last backup session that they have from you, and you're back in business. And I thought that was such an interesting concept. So for that alone, I would recommend you guys to check this movie. I thought it was a nice sci-fi thriller. So if you haven't heard of it, check it out. Then we rewatched Saw 3 because, again, rewatching for Saw 10. Then I watched Vincent Must Die. That is the last movie I watched in the month of September. And this is a movie that it has to be your type of humor. This is about a guy that he doesn't know why, but people sometimes when they look at him, they just want to hurt him. And the thing is that the movie starts escalating. Like it starts just like a coworker slaps him, and then things start getting worse and worse to the point where he really has to hide and try to defend himself so that people won't kill him. It's a very interesting commentary on microaggressions as well as what happens when people let anger take over and they lose control. And it was funny at times, but this is a French movie, so I feel like they always have a very specific type of humor that it has to be for you. In this case, the humor didn't always land for me. Not all the jokes were funny for me, but it's a fun concept. So if you like this type of films, definitely check it out. Now, when it comes to TV shows, we're still rewatching Supernatural and Bones. Now that it's October, we're gonna start season 2 of Loki. And I am currently watching Minx because it's a TV show that I wanted to check out, and I am finishing season 1, and honestly, it's a lot funnier than I anticipated because it's quite sarcastic and quite out of the blue at times with the humor. So I'm enjoying it more than I expected. I was hesitant because I knew it was kind of like a comedy and those sometimes don't work for me, but I am enjoying it more than I thought. It is about a magazine in the 70s that is kind of trying to be a feminist magazine, but in order to be printed and get distributed, they have to put kind of like porn for females in the cover inside to attract the females, and then put articles in them in the magazines that are empowering and that are feminist. And I thought it was genius. It's very funny. So yeah, loving it more than I anticipated, to be honest. So this is everything, you guys, that I watched in the month of September. Let me know down below, what have you been watching lately? What is a movie that you would recommend me that you say I cannot miss on that? Let's talk about it in the comments down below. Thank you guys as always so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in our next coffee time. Bye!